And we are live. Hello. Welcome to the Betaverse, the Beta Universe, maybe. I'm Ryan Erickson. We are here. You, me, and Niels Pflaeging are here for BetaCodex Live, our 75th episode.
Isn't that amazing? I never expected us to get
here. But what are we if not to defy expectations?
Absolutely, yes. No, I thought that we might reach 20 episodes or something, but we started in a weekly rhythm. Now we went to 2 weekly or something, a little bit more flexible. But it has been a ride.
Yeah, I mean the production was we at one point it was like, I'm going to do this at 9 a.m. every Monday morning. I'm gonna go in and do this, and like, it burned me out.
Our little sessions burned you out.
That's being a bit hyperbolic about it, but
fresh air touched to it.
Yes.
I think we're looking forward to moving into a stage where we would have more guests more frequently. Yes.
Yeah, I know we have a couple lined up. And yeah, absolutely. And if you happen to be watching, whenever you are, wherever you are, and if you or someone you know would like to contribute to what we talk about here in decentralization, democratization, federalization, all the kind of freedom at work stuff that we are so fond of here, please drop them a line and drop us a line, me or Niels, and we'll make it happen. So well, the topic of today is an update on the Beta Universe. After 75 episodes of this is just like one tiny little piece of what's been going on for the last 17 years in this domain. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm happy to go in wherever you'd like to go. Is there anything you would like to say to our voluminous number of friends out there in the
hopefully voluminous, and that doesn't mean body size necessarily, right?
No. The plethora of humanity out there currently viewing them.
So yes, I think this session I looked up when we did the last kind of session like this about an update on the Beta Universe, and it was only 6 months ago, I think in March or so.
Yeah.
So it was relatively maybe it wasn't BetaCodex Live, or in some other context we did that kind of review. Where do we stand today? And I noticed there has been quite a shift. Really, this has been something like sometimes I self-aggrandize. I like that. Yeah. Sometimes yes. So I thought of Einstein's breakthrough year 1926, I think it was.
Yeah.
Published several papers that would change the way we look at physics. And it has changed our look at physics forever. So that was his Annus Mirabilis, or something like that it's called in Latin, his miraculous year. And I think we're in something like a year somewhat like that for the BetaCodex network. And this is, of course, a little pompous to say, and consciously it's not entirely serious that I'm saying, but
a lot has happened this year.
Exactly.
It's been very active. So
yes, and there have been some breakthrough, events and realizations, I think, that have, enormous impact on the network. So I suggested this as a topic, right, to look at this critically and in a historical context. And in a hysterical context, so to speak, world of today, So yes, but to give people a hunch of, that's why this session is called Beta Universe Update, what it means to you. The idea, of course, is not just to brag or to show off or to inflate our egos or anybody's ego, but to say to prove in a way that it's really worth stepping into the business of beta at this time, to perceive it as a business as well. This is especially to my agile and lean friends out there. The agile bubble, I think I pick up data all the time about the agile movement right now.
Yeah.
Or
the lack of movement. The lack of movement.
Or the lack of movement, or the bubble has really burst. I think by now everybody who called him or herself, agile coach, is now out of job or looking for a different role, or already stepped into the AI hype to make a living, to survive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do Scrum Masters still exist? I mean, people who have this,
Well,
I'm not sure.
Organizations do hire that particular title and role. The question is whether they are doing what that role is
And
that it's
still,
intended to do.
And I think what I also hear is that the pay for such roles or positions, one must say, has shrunk. So the hype is over, and people have, I think, received glorious paychecks to be Scrum Master or Agile Coach or whatever, and or certified whatever in the Agile field. So I think those days are pretty much over in most countries, at least. I cannot speak for the whole world, of course. My data points are somewhat restricted.
Well, data here in the U.S. is for sure. The gold rush is over. I mean, I think that's
gold rush is clearly over. The market is totally different by now, and so I think the time has finally come that people can notice and perceive that the future is probably not, at least not just in Agile, but if there is a future in software development or around tech in Agile, then I think it will be a combination of Agile and Beta, and we will get to that in a moment. Yeah. Ryan, does that make sense to you at all? We didn't talk these things through.
Well, we chatted about it. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have had any content with which to make a graphic or talk about or do what we're going to do here. Yeah, totally makes sense. And I think in terms of what does the BetaCodex now movement, I mean, maybe we'd say it was a movement. What does the network mean to the integration of work systems and organizational development, design, all that kind of stuff? It's I think, interestingly enough, many of the Agile coaches, I would say myself included, part of in that was kind of what I was attempting to do and a while back, is that really what organizational development and that focus on humanity in the workplace is really, there's a lot more richness and possibility in that the domain of organizational design, domain of organizational development. Now, of course, there are a number of folks out there who don't know what they're talking about and attempt to, let us say, put forth insufficient theoretical support for what they do, which is absolutely not what we talk about here. It's very grounded in theory, very progressive, and it's again an actually
I think the last
way of doing things differently.
We've seen a couple of fads as well that indicate, let's say, starting with the Spotify model or whatever, and Agile scaling. We started to see the Agile scene to migrate into the organizational development sphere, but without acknowledging, even remotely acknowledging, available insight and theory and mastery. So, and the effects, I think, have been disappointing, to say the least, but not surprisingly, because it couldn't work. Looking at certain concepts, I think it's important to say it couldn't have worked out. SAFe couldn't have worked out anywhere. It's just you could also have burned. Corporations could also have burned the money instead of adopting Agile scaling.
would have been better to burn
to heat,
money.
For heating purposes.
And also the idea, did it work for creating software, large scale software projects with quality effectiveness and all that kind of stuff?
Did it that's the ultimate question, of course, not what we opinionate, but did those things, the Agile fads of the last, let's say, 10 years even, did any of them promote better software development, faster software development, more effective, and the fads, I think, didn't. Of course, there has been great work in Agile, and great, very focused work and so on. But the hype, the fad, it went, I think, into a not suboptimal direction. But that's one thing. So that's to explain where we stand. Just to explain where we stand, right? We stand Of course, this is a time of societal and political changes as well, but it's also a change, you know, in our business environment, and certainly the agile hype is over. The AI hype doesn't contribute much to our field of organizational change, development, excellence, and so on.
It contributes to the noise.
It's a technological thing that also produces a lot of noise, exactly. But here we go talking about organizational advancement, and that's a differentiated topic, as we will see. Yeah. So, but the idea is to invite you all to look back in history, look back in time, and we picked as a starting point. We picked a moment of time when the BetaCodex network was founded.
Would you like to go to the slide that shows that?
Yes, thank you, Ryan, for suggesting that.
Ta-da! So here we go.
This network began, right? And there is a little trick here. There's some things that were happening at the time that aren't shown because they do have no weight today. So we only we are only looking here at things that existed in 2008 and that still have some meaning today. For example, in 2008 we also did events. You know, I still lived in Brazil, for example, and we offered you know, BetaCodex cafe events in Sao Paulo and all kinds of stuff, but you know, nothing that would be meaningful or important today. So what we had when we founded the BetaCodex network, building upon the work of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, and you know, looking at or bringing this transformational stance to organizational development. This is what we had when we set it up. You know, we had a network website. We produced a bunch of research papers in 2008. This was very important for the movement, and you can still read all these papers, research papers today. We had some social media presences that were also something that doesn't exist anymore. Real forums, discussion forums. I spent a lot of time writing and replying. Social media wasn't as evil as it is today, of course, back in 2000.
So prevalent,
but it was time-consuming for me. I remember the biggest forum or group that we had was on a platform that is now, what is it now? It's now a job hunting platform. It's called Xing now. And we had a big group going on there, and lots of correspondence back and forth. But also there were events. You know, this was pre-COVID, obviously, and so people met, and it was pre-social media hype as well. So people really met face to face a lot. You know, nothing like this here. This kind of virtual session was very rare to go on, right? Yeah.
Well, live streaming wasn't there.
Exactly, live streaming wasn't there. So, and I had 2 acclaimed books published. That was very helpful to get this started. And one of them, my second book, was published in Portuguese as well. But at the time, no books in English, by the way. You know, just
I was going to say, which books were there? Yeah. When did you have the first book in English? Is that one of our next slides? I think maybe.
In English was 2015 only, so much later. Yeah, so we started really, the English content was in the papers. That was the idea. Oh, we don't have any English books. Self-publishing wasn't very popular there at all either. And I had just won Best Business Book Award in 2006 in German, but I couldn't publish the book in English. I think there was a translation already in 2008 in Russian and I would have to think Portuguese, Russian, and Turkish. I'm not quite sure. So there were a few translations, but none in English. Yeah, so those were the humble beginnings, right? And we had, of course, we had consulting clients, you know, transformation clients, but very few success cases.
At that point, was it just you and Silke doing the work?
No,
Silke Herman, for those of you.
Silke didn't exist in the beta universe yet. No.
Did she exist in the Pflaeging verse yet?
No, I didn't know her at the time. No, I only met Silke in 2000. I met her in 2008 or 9.
Okay, so you came in there as a single beta parent.
Yes, but there were other people in the picture, like Valeria Carvalho from Brazil and Gebhard
Yeah.
Borg, German consultant. So I think the trio of us, we were the nucleus, and Andreas, another guy from Germany, who I think he had already left in 2008, or he was leaving already. So we tried to associate people, but it was basically the three of us, setting up the scene for the BetaCodex network. It was, of course, at the time called the Beyond Budgeting Transformation Network, BBTN.
In 2008.
Yeah.
Oh.
When we started.
So the name of BetaCodex didn't come until after the birth.
The brand BetaCodex, I think that came in 2009. Yes. So a little bit later, but of course, we put this. It wouldn't make sense to tell all the history here. This is to show the Beta universe only had a few stars. There are not so many planets in this.
Well, there were only 5 nodes in the network.
Exactly.
That was
compared to today, as you will see, this was nothing. It was very hard to get the message through. On the other hand, the research papers were very widely read, I would say.
Yeah.
And of course, I published articles, the books, the articles, they reached lots of people at the time. So it wasn't that we were unsuccessful. We had consulting clients, we did transformation work, but it wasn't set up, as a huge business ecosystem either,
Yeah. Well, that sets the stage for next. So 10 years later.
10 years.
So 10 years later, we have how many? We have quite a few more nodes I didn't say in the last slide. So we had tell the world and change the world. Right? So
can you zoom in a little bit more?
I can't in this version, but I could do this maybe. How about that?
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah. Good. Yeah, so 10 years on, Silke's firmly in the picture here already, and OpenSpace Beta was her original idea. We have BetaCodex Press, you see that at the top, the yellow dot. So we have our own independent publisher by then. We have posters, banners, cards, sets, learning bundles, and so on offer. We have of course, the most important thing, transformation cases. Few at least, and we built a theory, between 2018 or 2008 and 2018, in the first 10 years, we started to build the theory, starting with org physics, which was already a lot of contribution by Silke in this in org physics. So we moved beyond the humble beginnings of theory that the Beyond Budgeting movement had built and created, more robust theory and figured out stuff like org physics, the 3 structures of organization, the distinction between value creation structure, formal structure, and informal structure. So, and then we moved on to, thinking more about what we now call, time box change, very fast organizational transformation, and with change as flipping, a paper in 2015, right? So we thought more consistently. Of course, there was a lot of research going into all of that, about how to accelerate the change, the transformation of organizations. Yeah. So, yeah.
So what at that point that again, the theory is the big piece there that's different, right, than what we're talking about, and I'm wondering what was the conversation about? Oh, we need to really articulate this, or
yes,
or were you and Silke reading the same things at the same time around that, or what was that conversation like that kind of shifted? We're talking about this stuff and we're doing the transformation work. We want to put some meat underneath it. What was that?
Yes. What happened between 2008 and 2018 was that we had tried beta consulting, and it didn't quite work out. It worked out as a business. I have done beta consulting for more than 20 years now and lived from it, but we didn't quite accomplish the kind of transformation, only in rare cases. This is why a company called Wir Design appears here, a company where we then said, Silke and I said, okay, this transformation, decentralization, self-structure, it really stuck at the company. It really worked out, and we accomplished the transformation and finished the work, and the company still has a decentralized cell structure. and they are much more successful than before. So we had a few transformation cases, but not so many. And we had also, Silke and I, we had started to do consulting work together maybe in 2010 or so, I suppose, or maybe 2009 already. And we had these disappointing, every consultant knows this experience of disappointment. The client doesn't get it, the client doesn't, doesn't become a sponsor, as we call it, it doesn't accept the role, doesn't move on, doesn't authorize the change. Oh my God, there were so many problems, and not beyond our own. We always looked at it critically and wondered what mistakes did we make, but it wasn't mistakes or not mistakes. The problem was that the approach was wrong. So Silke at a certain point, maybe in 2015 or 16, said, Niels, you can go on with this consulting shit. I would stop here. I'm not interested anymore.
I can hear her saying this, by the way. I
yes,
can hear it.
He definitely said that. So that led to the development of change as flipping, very fast organizational transformation, and then open space beta, which is the red dot in this picture here. And additionally, we also looked at the time. We looked back at the first 10 years of the BetaCodex network and said, why are so few people doing it? What's missing? What's the missing piece? And of course, one of the missing pieces was that there seemed to be no beta methods. There seemed to be just the principles of the BetaCodex and insights and stuff you could talk about and discuss that were wonderful and true, and excellent. But how to accomplish that? There was the instruments weren't well defined. So we started to change that in 2018 with Open Space Beta, which is an approach that is really articulated. That's you can show it to 100 people and you can go, because people will know what this is about and how this works. So we started with Open Space Beta.
Yeah.
Thanks to influences from many influences like that, of those of Daniel Messick, of course, and yes, and then we said, okay, this is just the beginning. So if we understand now how the transformation process works with Open Space Beta in 90 days and so on, then what other social technologies might be hidden in beta that we need to uncover, that we need to make explicit, and out of that later came cell structure design and relative targets. Yeah. Does it make sense?
Wow. Yeah, it completely makes sense. The other thing in there is that one of the things that I like to talk about now when I talk about the BetaCodex is the flip, like the first flip that takes place to understand what the alpha, to see the alpha world for what it is, and then to make a flip here to seeing the beta world and understanding relative versus fixed targets, leadership versus leaderships, centralized versus decentralized, power over, power with. There's a ton of flips that happen, up here inside. And then what that changes flipping, you're talking about actual, would you go to, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say changes as flipping? And is that still something that you like to talk about, today in the intervening?
Absolutely. Yeah, it has. Oh my God. Change as flipping, the big insight in change as flipping, which is a BetaCodex network research paper. Some of the big insights there is resistance to change does not exist. Change is not a plannable process that had these ridiculous phases from analysis to paralysis, but transformation consists of, let's say, 2,000, 7,000 flips to the system, interventions on the system that you will have to make. And that then people's behaviors will basically adapt. People will adapt their behaviors to the flips in the system, to the changes in the system. Change the pay system, people's behaviors will change. Eliminating bonuses and individual targets, people's behaviors will change. Or do a fast close, something very technical, do fast closing every month and show everybody the numbers. People will change their behaviors. Of course, not all of them are all at the same time, but people's behaviors will change, And that is the insight from change as flipping. And it's a big insight. People are not the problem, systems are, and we can work the systems by flipping them. Which is why I said I would call the insights the learning that you need to get to beta. I wouldn't call that. They are insights, And without certain insights about human nature and so on, you will never go there. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's kind of a discovery. Maybe that's. I mean,
Yes.
I'm talking a flip in terms of very simply for me. This flip is the idea of my mind sees an org chart. This top down a triangle. It sees a triangle, and then
yes,
and then you
if we call
see
that
things
flip,
in your.
and we have no word left for the interventions on the system. Those are what we call flips. Yeah. But people use that all the time, and it's important, I think, to always clarify. No, we reserve that word, that beautiful word, we reserve it to interventions on the system in a transformation. And actually, systems flip all the time, or are being flipped. One wonderful example is you create a growing company, creates a human resources department. That's a huge flip. That's a mega flip already. And it produces more flips because those people in HR will start implementing more systems, performance appraisal, culture engagement studies, or whatever. So you can have flips that have follow-up flips and dozens and hundreds of them. Or starting to budgeting. That's a flip. Abolishing.
Well, so this is something even different. When I'm thinking of flip, I'm thinking of something
realization, learning, insight.
But what you're talking about is something in a flip in a different way. It's like the domino theory. It's like the flipping of the dominoes. You flip something, you flip something there, and it just kind of does that. Yes. Which is, again, this is another insight. Oh, that's another flip that talks about. And the other thing, so is that when you're talking about this, what flipping means, two things that come up for me on this. One, well, the open source nature of this entire environment. Did open source, did you go into this back in 2008 with the idea that this is going to be open source technology?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We always wanted this and insisted that Beta had to be open source, but we didn't use proper open source licenses until 2018 when we started with Open Space Beta. Interestingly, we always said this is open source. Everybody can use it. It's free to use. However, we didn't use the common, how is it called? Common
Creative Commons license.
Creative Commons license.
Share-alike license.
That we kind of got that. I got that from Daniel Mezek. We really have to have the license. Otherwise, it's queasy. It's not legal, even legally, legally, open source, so to speak. So we started the open source license, but it was clear all the time we could do no certifications, and we did that from the experience in the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, the Beyond Budgeting movement. One of the things I learned is that these closed shop models do not, they restrict advancement, and they actually bury any hope of advancement. Yeah, so you cannot have a closed shop model. We only produce the content for members, and members have to pay a fee, and we certify people. That wouldn't work. That was clear to us, Valeria and myself and Gebhard in 2008. But the real licenses, that only came with the social technologies, when we said, BetaCodex is a social technology, but we also have open space beta now. And later we would have self-social design and relative targets, and now more. Get into that in a minute.
Yeah. So, and again, before we move into 2025, with the now, the other thing that changes, you mentioned 7,000 flips. And you've talked about that, like there's a book in there you talked about before. And
yes.
I got stuck on that number. Well, where did you come up with 7,000? Again, another episode, I'm sure it is. But where did you come up with 7,000? And where'd you come up with that?
Yeah, organizational transformation of an existing organization. It doesn't require working on people, but it requires people to react to changes in the system. You have to change the system so that people can respond to that productively, and say, okay, I had these incentives not to collaborate, but now the incentives are gone. I noticed that, and I changed my behavior, and we can actually collaborate, which is what human nature motivates us to do in a way. But in command and control systems, there are 1,000 barriers to collaboration, for example, or to efficiency even, So removing these barriers, That's a lot of stuff. Every organization, every large organization could remove 2,000 things, from performance appraisal to the obnoxious,
budgeting
questionnaires and all these stuff that go nowhere, to certain departments that should have never have existed, to moving to or eliminating rules, the travel policies. There are 2,000. This is not an exact number. This is
ticketing
there
systems.
Are lots of things in every organization that you need to identify and kill off. That embody command and control thinking, from pay systems to titles to processes, from the finance area or
does that
so eliminating that organizational hygiene, just so you can do 2,000 flips or intervention on the system that are just about organizational hygiene, and then there are 5,000 about creating better structure to decentralize. You have to do another set of interventions, and those might be another 2,000 or 5,000. It doesn't matter. And you have to do all this very fast. That's what very fast organizational transformation is about. You do it in 90 days, usually, or a bit faster even, which is not a problem. It sounds like a lot, but it's very easy once you have the insights
and the theory. It can sound daunting. I mean, that can sound like an intimidating number.
It is
to folks.
No, I've seen clients of ours.
Not to you, because but you're saying the client experience is there.
No. I think it's important to demystify. Change is easy. That's exactly one of the things in the Change as Flipping paper, which you should read again, Ryan. In the change, people have no trouble with change.
Love
people
being scolded by Niels.
Everything changes all the time. In America, people take their house and move it somewhere else sometimes. Is that still a thing? Does that still exist?
Well, mobile homes, not as prevalent. But
so people are doing all kinds of shit. They're capable of doing all kinds of changes all the time, and but in organizational systems, it's an easy thing to say, look, we have this nasty process here, or this nasty role or position. We just eliminate it, not the person. That person can do something constructive, but we have to kill the role. So
in this,
So a flip is not something difficult. It's not hard. It's just that, oh my God, now that we understand how decentralization works, you 500 flips in every client transformation. To me, 500 flips come to mind. So once the client is ready, they will start flipping away and flipping to beta, and changing the system in that direction. It's very simple. It can be done.
I'm already thinking. I'm already thinking of a title for another episode on what's your flipping problem, right? What's your flipping problem?
Yeah, good. But organizations just have. That's also something we wrote about in the Change as Flipping paper. I think most companies aren't used to do that. They aren't used to looking at their system this way. That is, it consists of not of nuts and bolts, but of processes, rules, tools, patterns. For example, killing off committees. Most larger organizations have many committees. Killing them all off, you can do that within a week. And the travel policy that will include several steps, and so you can simplify the pay system and so on. All that will ripple through the organization, and that's not a difficult thing. It's just necessary work, which is abandoned, which is not done. And also the agile movement hasn't done it. Lean. I've never heard of people in the lean movement say, "Oh, if we really want to get to flow, we have to remove certain areas and processes."
It's all been a focus within a particular value streams. We focus on the value stream, and that's it.
That's it, supposedly. But no, you cannot produce flow if you have 500 departments, ruling, steering, doing the individual shit. Of course, it doesn't work. So you have to flip the system accordingly. You cannot just do lovely talk about Scrum and Kanban and whatever. You also have to correct the system, so to speak, right? In a way, every flip is a correction of the system in a beta fashion. And as we say, each individual flips this, which is why this is not a daunting idea. And when we have done it with dozens of companies, every individual flip is beta, is producing the beta organization. Every single flip makes the organization beta. And we conceptualize this. This is the blue part at the bottom, right? Understanding org physics better, changes flipping, time boxed change, and embedding these concepts in the open space beta approach that enabled us to, for the first time then, to undertake transformation very fast and effectively we have never failed at finishing an open space beta process. Once we started, it went through, so that all didn't happen happenstance fashion. We had to learn to create the conditions.
Yeah. Are you ready to move on to the present day?
Are we? Yes, of course. Yes. Let's move on from 2018 to 2025. This is today. So
a lot more nodes in the network.
Yes, and for those of you interested in doing beta internally or externally, it means, oh my God, the tool set is complete. Not complete, but it's a very good tool set. Lots of tools that help you, but for anybody like us who's doing consulting services, training, coaching, etc., these are all related to business, directly or indirectly. Some things not so much. Like tell the world on the right side, the blue dots. They are not about earning money. They're about getting the word out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
However, the other dots, most of them are about producing income. You can
doing the work,
doing the work, with companies or communities or whatever, and also these are business opportunities, I would say. Yeah. So we now have these 5 social technologies in the arsenal. Open space beta was first. These are the red dots, right? Open space beta was first, then came sound structure design. We're moving up, right, to relative targets. That was the third. And this year we had 2 additions, right? 2 that are important. Open space dev, which adds a fresh take on open space technology for today and for organizational development. And then another recent research paper we published was on time-oriented
work systems and time-oriented. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
now I got confused by my own slide here, by my own visual here, right? We're jumping to the blue dot to the left. Time-oriented work systems. That was the other research paper. Maybe you move on a slide, then it gets gray. Then the new additions to the game get gray. If you move to the next slide.
New addition. Cool it now. Watch out.
Yes.
New addition. Remember new addition. Bobby Brown.
I was just talking about the new stuff. Open space dev is new. Was published this year. Second, I had used it since we worked this way with open space since 2018, because when we started using open space beta, we needed a different take on open space as well. So we created open space dev already in 2018, but it only became a social technology this year, published. So now
there are enough distinctions. I mean, I think that it's worth saying from open space dev. I mean, it's a very significant change versus what was happening. What happens in a legitimate.
You shouldn't say
according. Well, I'm putting the codes. A traditional old style open space technology.
Old style open space. I think old style open space smells funny. The one from the 1980s. Do the session pitching. We talked about this in another episode, and nobody agree with what I'm saying. Maybe you do. Yeah. You do not.
I think that what the point I wanted to make was that open space dev is it developed as a result of your practice, and that you found things that worked about open space technology and things that from that particular method that needed more. And you learned that through your practice. And that's, again, we talked about that later, but I think that's very interesting.
We learned this through thinking and then developed a practice. It was that way around. We thought about what works in open space. Of course, we thought what we knew, the second I have done open space for 20, 25 years. We have used it for a long time, both of us individually. Then we came, when we started working together, we used open space with clients, but we always said, okay, yeah, let's do open space, but this and that, the session pitching, that makes no sense, we said. So what are the alternatives? How can we use the web? How can we use, how can we make better use of people's time? Basically, that's the thing. We wanted to make open space faster, more impactful, more self-organized still. And there were patterns. There are patterns in old style open space that we needed to get rid, to make it. We said if we allow session pitching, we make a fool of ourselves. I think it's embarrassing to let that happen. So all these kinds of insights went into open space dev. If you haven't read the paper, you should read it. This is to our audience, of course, right? So this was one new thing, new social technology. We had this debate, Circa said, is this really worth publishing as a separate social technology? I insisted, yes.
It was a little bit of a surprise when I saw that, when you started doing that. It was, again, I have some differences of opinion about open space technology. But again, I think there are some super valuable distinctions about what open space dev brings, and it is a tool and method. Again, it's tailor-made based on its solid theoretical background for the work in organizational change, which
practical and theoretical. Of course, when we said we have to rethink open space a little bit to make it contemporary. We thought about, okay, people will then again be able, of course, to tweak it in their way. So nobody has to, oblige to the way we defined open space dev, but we wanted to put everything in, all the modification that we think are important. Yes, and also, again, this is not self-serving. We wanted open space to serve organizational transformation.
Yeah.
Within a process where you begin organization in open space beta, you begin you begin the transformation in open space and close it 90 days later with an open space. So open space had to gained certain characteristics. For example, the prep day. Yes. So you need, after the first open space, you need a prep day. That for us is part of open space technology, of open space dev now. Yeah. And these characteristics simply didn't exist because nobody had thought of it, or hardly anyone had.
Or if they were doing it, they didn't put in the work to wrap it into a method. And again,
exactly, they would just improvise, facilitate, and we thought, no, this is very important. This is a cornerstone of open space beta, to have something to bridge from the open space event, so to speak, into the 90 days of flipping
transformation. The 7,000 flips in 90 days.
So this should be inspiring to many people, but what's even more, or what should be even more interesting or more challenging, is time-oriented work systems on the left. And we published a research paper. I published a research paper. That one, I wrote it alone. I published this paper just 4 or 5 months ago, on, let's say, lean work systems, production systems, and, comparing the big 3 of time-oriented lean approaches, which are quick response manufacturing, lean RFS, and the Weichselbaum system. So there's a lot of, and that led me to research the whole theory of time orientation, flow orientation in work. So that's a huge field. I think it's a revolution to lean. We haven't turned this into a social technology, which is why it is a blue dot there on the left and not a red dot more in the center. But it's a big thing. It's a big thing. Yeah, putting lean head onto its feet.
So, do you want to say anything about the dot? Because it looks like there are orange dots in there now.
Yes.
And so, what does that represent? How is that? What changed after
that? A little bit. The orange dots are very peculiar, and this is like the growing field for us. To also create actual products around beta. BetaCodex Press started to exist in 2014 or so, when I published Organize for Complexity in English under our own publishing brand. So that's one thing. But what really deserves attention are Comenius and myself at work, developed by Red 42. Comenius was developed by Silke and myself, And Myself at Work was developed by Silke and Jonas Happel, who is now a professor in Copenhagen. And these are really, let's say, product businesses. They are software-based. Comenius is a learning infrastructure, a learning system, or EdTech, as the industry is called. And Myself at Work is a personality diagnostics that is, far superior to Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or any of these things, because it's based on the Big Five,
yeah.
Psychological model, which is the state-of-the-art model to psychological analysis, type building, and so on. So and academic research around psychology. So Big Five came to the forefront over the last 10 or 15 years or so, and it's an approach that didn't produce so many instruments that could be used in business, and Myself at Work accomplished this. It's a huge thing, a big feat. It's a wonderful approach, and beta thinking went into it. So it's a diagnostic that doesn't deliver you leadership bullshit. It gives you an analysis of your own profile as a person and how to work together with others, and in the context of self-organization, decentralization, and actual work without the command and control bullshit. So it's not about how to relate to your boss, how to lead your underlings if you're an extrovert, not that kind of silliness. There are no alpha command and control patterns in Myself at Work, and that was very important for the development of the approach. So everybody can test that, people can sell it, you can use it in your work. Myself at Work is a wonderful personality type, and I would say it's a new generation of personality tests or diagnostics, non-judgmental. You can debrief yourself. The report that comes out of the system is very, very rich, very detailed, incredibly rich, really. So so you do not depend on somebody to debrief you, but you can use it in organizations, with debriefings and workshop methods, tools, and so on. So it's an excellent, wonderful product,
which is. Again, maybe this takes us into what may happen in 2026 is a feature on Myself at Work in our environment here, and how that connects to the beta universe and the practices.
Yes, this came the realization that we need psychometric diagnostics, psychological tests in the beta universe. I had that 15, 20 years ago already. Silke already had that. At the time, so because we wanted to understand, okay, how to accelerate change, how to involve people better, without being judgmental, without stereotyping, without and also we said we needed, as a consultants, it would be helpful to understand people's predispositions, psychological inclinations better. And for me, that was in 2007, 2008, 2009. I used the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator together with another consultant. We used the MBTI, but that wasn't very satisfactory. We used it well. We didn't use it to judge, but still, it wasn't rich enough to use it more consistently in transformation work, I thought. So, and that's how I found Silke, because she was working with another diagnostic at the time that was also Jungian based. Today, again, the Big Five approach, it's much more powerful, but and it also can be used more consistently in work, and it's much more telling about how people will respond to change, for example, which gives you a lot of information, gives people information about their natural responses to this kind of change, dynamic and situation. So this is helpful for people in change, including the sponsor. It's important for teams, to find together and learn about each other's predisposition, instead of saying, he's odd, she's weird, he's incapable, she's resistant to change.
To segregate people and to put them into boxes so that they can be.
Myself at Work is an amazing and very simple. It's very accessible, so you can do this diagnostics, this it costs like $70-80, and it gives you a lot of material to work with as an individual, as a team, and as an organization, and especially as an organization in a change or transformation moment. So yeah, myself at work has been an important addition, and it took us a long time to overcome the Jungian psychometric psychological model, and to say, no, Big Five is it. The solution is Big Five, and how can we use it in transformation? Well, it needs to be accessible to everyone, not just to managers, which is a big feat. To say, if you have 10,000, 100,000 people, literally you can pay for everyone to have a myself at work profile. It's not that expensive, and it can be self-debriefed. You can debrief some people, with an expert, but people can debrief themselves. You can use it in workshops immediately, and so on. So very useful. And is the learning technology.
So we have the orange dots that again, we have far too little time to talk about all of them in any detail here. But we do have also the green dots. I want to make sure we also get to the meat of what does this mean for the folks out there who are watching, listening, and learning from this. That too.
So one slide, and then we see that there are three green dots really, and they are.
We go back a slide. That's the one.
One further on. So here we see that currently there are 3 dots here in this visualization, and it's not so clear cut to distinguish yellow and green. But the idea is that green are tools that are at people's disposal. But however, you might say that myself at work is also a tool, but we use it very transformation focused. But both are, in a way, methods, approaches, tools, and software-based. The BetaCodex thermometer is the latest, developed by friends in Argentina, Ernesto and Alejandro. And it allows, companies early on, or even before, while they learn about beta, for example, to learn about where they stand. So to take the temperature, so to speak. That's why they call it. It's a diagnostic, an organizational diagnostic that is free of charge, available in English and in Spanish, soon to be available in more languages. And it's a wonderful way, because you talked earlier about the realization of beta and understanding it better. That's something that the thermometer wants to produce as well, aims at producing. And I think they developed a wonderful tool already, software-based, free of charge. Very telling. You can do a lot of things with it in a company, and company workshops and so on, reflections. And we have since last year the card game also developed by our Argentinian friends, by Ernesto Corona, which is an intervention format that can use in workshops and conferences to produce that insight. So it's a learning tool, right? But on in a different way than Comenius, for example, which is a real learning technology, and Flippo is really a card game that you use in the physical space on different tables, to have people get into the groove of beta thinking, so to speak. So we didn't have these things. We are constantly adding posters and booklets and learning bundles and so on, and in several languages. Now the laws of the BetaCodex booklet is available in, I think, 4 languages. So all of these things are growing. That's why the slide is so full, right? Because we have really created a lot of new stuff over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So that leads us somewhere else. That leads us to the world of tomorrow, right? And to where are we going with all these things?
Yes, one thing that I need to highlight is the last red dot in the image we didn't talk about, time-oriented software development, which is coming in a few days, right? And that leads us to 2026 and beyond. If you move one slide ahead again, new additions to the chart are visible. The gray dots here in this visual are the additions to the universe that we have produced in this year. And for example, there's now a Substack web magazine. There have been these papers on open space dev, time-oriented work systems, and so on. But a real paradigm shift is also, one we didn't mention, is time-oriented software development, or TOSD, as we now call it. That isn't even published. We have produce some teasers around it, but this is, well, time-oriented software development is a reality in a company called Pflaeging. So there's a pioneering company already operating in time-oriented software development fashion. I had the idea to the concept only in August. The publication of the concept will be now. So you see the incredible speed how this developed. And so we are launching time-oriented software development over the next few days, really, until the end of at the end of October. We will launch it.
Is this going to be given its debut at a conference of some sort, or?
Yes, I will talk about it for the first time at a conference on the 7th of November in Serbia. Not exclusively, it will be part of my keynote there, to talk a little bit. I will talk about time orientation and time-oriented software development there. But it's only part of my keynote. There will be workshop sessions. So if you are interested in learning about it, come to Belgrade on the 7th of November. Yeah, but publication of the paper is a little earlier, a few days earlier. And we will launch not just the research paper, but also the social technology, so people can use it under the open source license, and we will also offer, on the day of the publication, we will start to offer services around it also to make it happen in organizations. So this is, organizations can do time-oriented software development just by themselves, and get going with it. But in case they want and need support, there will be a portfolio of things available right from the start. Yeah, so we thought this through a little further over the last couple of days, how to make it happen. Because again, I would say it's fair to say the agile scene is kind of stuck, and time-oriented software development is a way to overcome this, and without the hassle of large-scale projects and endless implementation phases and so on.
Yeah. Adding bureaucracy to something that.
Of course, at this point, I can only tease at time-oriented software development because we didn't publish the paper yet, but this is the announcement. Yeah, still in October 2025, TOST will go live, and I would say it's really. You have read the research paper already. Doing corrections as we speak, so to say. How would you frame that?
Well, I would frame it that it's, to me, the feeling that it was an opening. It was an opening. In one way, it's a loosening of some of the structures that have been used as in old ways, using new tools in old ways. That what Scrum had become, and then that the responsibility and the intention of developing software seemed to be much more integrated in TOST, and certainly my mind understanding better time orientation versus capacity orientation. That's a fundamental change, right? It's a very, very specific change about. Yes. It changes how the prioritization is done. It changes how you, again, it's a challenge to the way of thinking about, we do planning, we do stand-ups, we do this, we do retro, we do sprint review, we have the 3 roles, the event. So, okay, it's all simple. You can talk about it in 5 minutes, in which there's a beauty to that simplicity, but it also misses so much of the nuance that happens between people. And there's a lot of confusion around all the names in Scrum and what does that mean? I mean, it's bonkers. Yes. And I think in TOST, again, my take at this point and my feeling about it, there's an opening, and then there's a distinction and a clarifying as to what really matters when you develop software.
Yes. What one beautiful what you just said, very well explained as well. What I think if looking back at software development, the history of software development, what happened at a certain point is that batch orientation, volume orientation came into play. That's why there's all this talk about estimation and evaluating and prognosis and planning and volumes and sprints. These are all in an industrial company. One would say this will never produce flow. This is not Toyota. It's the opposite of Toyota. It's batch processing is wrong. It doesn't produce. You cannot have flow if you think about volumes, bottlenecks in a way of how much can we produce, how to evaluate it, how to maximize it. Even the idea of sprints is still batch process thinking. That is not at all flow oriented, time oriented. It's the opposite. It means that we will group an amount of things from the backlog and produces in a batch that will take 2 weeks. That is not at all sophisticated. It doesn't overcome anything from previously. I think that's one of the reasons why most of Agile failed, because it didn't overcome the substantial waterfall problem of batch organization, batch orientation, volume organization, scaling even. It also talks, interestingly, Agile scaling is nothing else than more batch orientation, bigger batches, group it together into bigger bundles, and then we can steer it. That's not Toyota-esque at all. It's not flow. It will not even produce software, because in batch processing, you cannot. It's like a wall, not a bridge. Time orientation is a bridge. Batch orientation, which unfortunately is embedded in Scrum and so-called Kanban, which is a way in software development to call that method Kanban, because it doesn't produce flow. It's still batch oriented. So that's a substantial flaw that only time-oriented software development so far. I've looked at all the Agile concepts. None of them proposes to move beyond batch processing in software development, right? And that's why Scrum became Scrumberfall,
Scrumberfall and Water Scrum, Scrum Butt.
Exactly, and so there isn't, and I think there was no evil intention behind it. The insight lacked. I think the insight, it wasn't produced, sadly. And now
Scrum didn't change organizations. Organizations changed Scrum.
Certainly, exactly, and why? Because again, there is a difference between batch orientation and time orientation, and that with TOS, that's on the table now for everybody to use. It's the ultimate structure, and it's very, very straightforward, but requiring a lot of rethinking. I had to reprogram my thinking about software development too. For example, I was convinced until a few months ago that you needed software development teams. Only last year I I managed to overcome that flawed approach. Software is never developed in teams. And that insight, it took me years to get to that. Software is never developed in teams, never ever.
I think you'll find quite a bit of pushback to that particular statement when you enter
from the viewpoint of the old, the new is always wrong, and I'm talking about the new. What's right? What's correct? Because the pushback comes from that software development teams have become a dogma. It's totally flawed, but it has become a dogma of batch processing, and that's and all the organization around it indicates how serious this dogma is.
So I mean, there's lots of these things. I know we'll talk about more in depth when we talk about TOS in a whole episode.
Yes.
And what are the? I mean, maybe there's a matrix here too. But what are we talking about? We talk about XP. We talk about pair programming, XP and pair programming, mob programming, all these other ways of developing software,
which are excellent, but didn't stand a chance against the idea of batch processing that still dominated in software development. You're totally right. The right approaches to pair programming, for me, is the best example that shows that you do not need teams to produce software. You need a pair. Pair programming, for me, is one of the most brilliant, or XP. It's one of the most brilliant approaches, because it proves that in order to produce a piece of software, you need two people, actually 3, 2 people and their connection, right?
Yeah. Which
And
I've,
that
I've,
got me thinking. When I understood XP and pair programming better,
yeah,
that got me thinking. It was you're totally right. It's a very substantial concept, but it doesn't stand a chance against
yeah. Which
volume oriented.
I totally, again, I don't know much about mob programming or this ensemble programming. This
That's
guy
not a
named
team
Woody's,
either. That's a mob. That's different. Yeah.
what, there's the folks who developed it would have, we'd have a very lively conversation, I'm sure.
No, I
But I
don't think
think,
so. I think it would be
well,
very short conversation, because they would agree that mob programming is not based on the notion of teams. It's the opposite.
okay.
Very important. These are very important distinctions. We would talk about the distinction for 5 or 10 minutes, of course, but conceptually, it's all there. Mob programming is also a brilliant approach, of course. Yeah.
We do have one comment actually here. It kind of goes back to the psychometrics, and which is Sven.
Hello, Sven. Sven Heinemann. Okay. From my perspective, Big Five is good for a first static photo finish, for leveraging people in their development journey on the next level. Grade 8 Belbin business enneagram and a set of tools and methods. I label we got. Okay, that's sounds a bit like a sales pitch. Enneagram. Oh yeah. Okay, we certainly. This is difficult. Because we are.
Is it a big challenge? Yeah.
I do not even understand the winky. From my perspective, Big Five is good for a first static photo finish. Not sure what. Maybe I should only comment on the first thing, not the other things. I do not quite understand what that means. However, Big Five, I can only. We cannot discuss this profoundly, but Big Five is nothing about a static whatever photo shot or something. No. Big Five is the leading in the world, the one might say it's the only scientifically used approach to scientific research that's connected to psychology, to individual psychology. It's the only approach. Enneagram isn't even a scientific approach. Yeah. Nothing against that. You can do that as a hobby and so, but it's not scientific. So Big Five is used. Why is it used scientifically? Because it's very well substantiated. That's how it came about, and it was developed from linguistic research, which is something very real. Our language and words and terms. So there was a very interesting story. To Sven, I can only recommend to research it a little bit. The history is very interesting, very different from Jungian psychology that I also studied inside out. Big Five comes from this approach, from this attempt to condense the most important dimensions of personality, which could also be identified in our language or in languages from linguistic studies as very important traits. Yes. And Big Five is super interesting. I think I've learned a lot about Big Five over the last couple of years because it's highly relevant to work. Very relevant to work. Different than another diagnostic that was, or if you take MBTI, the Jungian-based models, introversion, extroversion, that's a similarity. That also appears in Big Five, by the way. But the other dimensions are so rich for work, understanding work and collaboration better. It's very, very rich. It's not shallow at all, and that I think what the comment might have suggested. It's not shallow at all. It's something you can all the time with, and myself at work or other tests, of course, allow you to retake time. If you have a different situation, do it again. That's not a big deal. You can do it over the time. You can do these. You can take this kind of diagnostic several times, and it will move a little bit, but it doesn't move substantially. That's what validity is about.
Yeah, I think you're getting exactly into there what I think he means by a photo finish. It's like, I'm going to take a snapshot of your entire psychological profile at this point, and then world's going to happen. And if you come in having eaten a bad sandwich, you take the whatever MBTI or whatever snapshot, you're going to get one level and then you take it down the road. So maybe that is the way with something.
Just a second. It's very important to understand what Big Five is, and it's about preferences that are relative, that move over time, but they do not jump from one day to another. For example, if whoever takes a modern diagnostic at the beginning of taking the diagnostic, of filling in the form, there would be some advice. Don't do this on a day when you are especially stressed or in panic or whatever. Don't do this when an earthquake or a volcano erupted around the corner. Do this when you're in a normal mood, because this is always based on self-judgment, right? Then you will get the most relevant results, And this is very important. But I think this is all about scientific understanding of diagnostics overall. And maybe Sven, it's worth considering that such diagnostics should be taken in a certain manner, that these methods, the Big Five, is a questionnaire, right? It has its own questionnaire, are scientifically very sound, open source, by the way, as well. And it doesn't give you just a snapshot. It gives you an idea of very fundamental 5 or in fact 10 facets that are very fundamental to our psychology, to our personality. Do they change over time? Yes, but they do not change from day to day. Would be different kind of things. But all that can be debated. Everybody has their. Sven mentioned a couple of tools. Some of them I know, some of them I do not know. We can have different tastes, but the underlying is, again, the underlying fact is the only psychological model that's relevant in today's research, and it became very, very common in scientific research in the last 15, 20 years. It has risen to, so to speak, in importance. That's Big Five. The other models are irrelevant in science. So that should give you an idea that this is not a hunchy thing.
They've not been legitimated. Yeah, and again, that's I was not advocating or asserting that myself at work in the Big Five was a snapshot based.
But maybe I misunderstood the whole.
I think that my point is, I think that's what he was saying. It's a snapshot. It's a self-reported snapshot, and there's too many variabilities. Possibly. I don't know. That's Sven's cultural domain.
Let me correct that. That is why it is used in science, because it's relatively stable. It's not totally stable.
Big Five, yeah.
I took it several times, and my results change almost nothing, because this is a particular thing in me. Maybe that it doesn't change because other people. But from day to day, from time to time, again, in relatively normal situations, doing the diagnostic, the results do not change much, and that phenomenon of a diagnostic being stable, that's a measure, a statistic validity of any diagnostic, serious diagnostic, is measured by this relative stability of results over time. So to say that this is just a snapshot, it's just wrong, because the Big Five diagnostic, its validity is proven. It is not a secret. There are papers
over periods of time, over longitudinal study, and all that kind of good stuff. So.
Again, that doesn't say that personality or individual preferences do not change over time. They change over time, and you can have a stressful situation and a normal situation and whatever. But the validity of a diagnostic is an important criterion of its quality, and Big Five is the leading scientifically validated diagnostic. So be careful with what you.
Sven, you're going to get a connection request and an instant message with this clip of this program to explain what we think.
Serious. And it's Sven. Thank you for the comment. It's it's wonderful that you commented. It just deserved a little bit of elaboration, I think.
It seemed like it poked you a little bit. So, where we are in.
We cannot allow for we have to try to make misunderstandings, misreadings as unlikely as possible, and that's the duty that we as podcasters, every podcaster has that, I think.
It's a question of the seriousness at which particular podcasters take that
exactly
obligation.
We are serious.
Yeah, somewhat
And it's
seriously. Except
wonderful.
I was trying to bring New Edition into this a little earlier with,
Yeah.
Cool It Now and all that stuff, and it fell flat.
No, but
At this,
again, let's not produce a misunderstanding. I'm not uncool. I'm not. It's not a heated argument. It's just, and Sven, of course, you didn't have the opportunity to respond. I have to apologize for that. And we can take this to another. We can interact further about this. Of course, it's just that in a podcast we cannot let. And some things are really facts. There are facts.
yes.
So these things we have to try clarify them as much as possible.
Objective reality does exist, contrary to some. All right. Well, I am at something of a time constraint. We are at an hour and 15. We could probably have gone again. Each of those nodes in the network.
On a message, because we deviated so much. Let me place a final message.
Okay. Well, absolutely. I was going to say, just if you look at this diagram again, how many dots do we have on here? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18,
so
21.
Many things are possible today. The BetaCodex universe, it allows us to do so many things, to accomplish so much, and to be so effective. It is such a rich, depending on people's inclinations, they can work more with one tool or another. They can work more with Comenius or myself at work or beta transformation. They can be more, they can do the more vocal things about, telling the world about beta, or they can go into, doing workshops with myself at work and still contribute to the beta universe and to organization and people's well-being, organizational well-being and effectiveness. So there's such a big bouquet of flowers in beta today that people can work with, and I recommend to look at it. Seriously.
It's a beautiful system of instruments to play wonderful, wonderful music with your organizations and the work you choose to do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my friend, this has been great. We're going to do this again, a couple weeks, in all likelihood. Most likely, I'm guessing, going to be around the time-oriented software development, possibly. Who knows?
Yes. We will also talk about the What Would Ono Do book, probably, as it's going to be released on the 3rd of November. It's also, I noticed yesterday, it's already on Amazon as well. Not quite, the price didn't appear yesterday, but it will appear in a few hours or days. So you can pre-order it not everywhere yet, but in a few days you will be able to pre-order it everywhere. It's finalized yesterday. Yesterday I finalized it. So yes, that's a wonderful book. First orders are coming in, packages of the book being ordered as well, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, if you want to find out more, contact Niels directly on LinkedIn for sure. Other places.
Yes.
The Substack, BetaCodex news. I'm trying to think. Is it just BetaCodex? Is BetaCodex.substack.com. Your Substack, we have red42.com, betacodex.org. I'm on LinkedIn, Ryan at RyanErickson.com.
Yes, reach out, please. We commented on a lot of aspects today that you might wonder what it's all about. Get in touch, get involved. You can also contact us through the LinkedIn BetaCodex Network LinkedIn group or whatever format you like. We would be happy to hear from you. Yeah, to discuss data.
Please do. This is just an invitation to go deeper, and I'm eager to do that with whomever wishes to do that, as I know you are, and did with me how many years ago when I first tried to jump into this world, and am so blessed for it. So, all right, folks, Niels and I are going to have a private moment after we sign off, so you don't get to be there for it. Goodbye, good night, good luck, good love, and we will see you next time on